Welcome to Backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. Thank you all for joining us, but most importantly, thank you to Echosmith having us on the bus. What a nice bus. I just noticed the TV here. That's very cool.
Yes.
And then, so would you guys just be able to introduce yourself to our listeners to start off?
Yeah, I'm Sydney and I sing.
And I'm Noah and I play bass.
Awesome, and you both do it very well. So I wanted to just sort of start with, your album Talking Dreams was released in 2013. It sort of started getting, Cool Kids started getting play probably about 12 months later, would you say? Around there. Was it a surprise when it took off about, a year later?
Yeah, I mean, for us, that song is a kind of slow growth, and for us, every single step it took kind of did blow our minds. I mean, even before it was on the radio, fans were singing it at shows, and college stations were playing it around. And for us, I mean, that in itself was amazing, and for people that come to our shows knowing a song was just such an incredible thought, and something that we had never thought we'd actually be able to attain ourselves. And I mean, then 12 months later, it was on the radio, and it kept growing, and eventually kind of was everywhere, and we'd be hearing it, over from Dunkin' Donuts to the bathroom and stuff. So it was it was pretty crazy to kind of have that progression where it was constantly blowing our minds with where we'd be hearing our music and how far it's reached.
Awesome, and I appreciate that you said Dunkin' Donuts, not Starbucks. No, Boston is exclusively Dunkin'.
I've seen those.
So I always find the answer to this question is interesting. When was the last time you guys actually listened to, I know that you play the album pretty much every night, but actually listened to the recording of it, and what did you notice, when you listened to it?
I don't even know. That's a really good question, actually.
2 years, maybe?
Jeez. I mean, all the way through. Not since before it came out, I guess. I guess there's just no reason to because I heard it enough. That's so weird. What a good question.
Well, no, I find it the same way. I hate listening back to these things because when you spend time preparing for something or preparing for a record, you feel like you know every inch of it. So to listen to it, it's nauseating sometimes.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I should have done that, or that could have been, it's you constantly think things you could have done, but that's what second records are for.
Exactly. And are you guys working on that one right now?
Next year. Next year is the year to work on that.
Awesome. We will be waiting with bated breath. So I have to list your influences because our audience is a little bit older and they love 80s alternative, so they'll perk up right now.
Yay.
Joy Division, The Smiths, Echo and the Bunnymen. Who was the kind soul who introduced you to these bands and who got you into this type of music?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, there's two ways we found out about it. Obviously, our parents kind of grew up in that age, so they knew about that music, and that kind of helped spread. And that, for sure, our dad was a big, U2 and The Cure fan, and bands like The English Beat and those kind of artists and stuff. So those bands, for sure, influenced us from his influence as well. And then also, there were bands coming out when we were growing up, especially, the, early, mid-2000s that, were influenced by those bands. Bands like Interpol or The Strokes or The Bravery or Coldplay even, and those kind of bands. Lots of them have influences that kind of trace back. And the cool thing about the internet, especially growing up having it constantly, we're able to see, what bands that we love that, were, our generation per se, what bands they were influenced by. And that leads us back to bands like The Smiths and Echo and the Bunnymen and The Cure and Fleetwood Mac and all sorts of different kinds of artists from different times.
That is such a great list, and the best part is you can tell people that you hung out with Morrissey, and it's not technically a lie. It's a great last name to have working in this area. So I listened to, I think it was "Tell Her You Love Her" recently, and heard. I almost felt like Bono could sing that song. It sounded so like U2. It was really cool. So what about some of these artists do you specifically take? Is it one person songwriting, or not take, but try to emulate more? Is it one person songwriting or one band styled, or what sort of?
Yeah, when it comes to bands like U2 and especially U2, I feel we're all very influenced. Obviously their music's really great, but also just kind of the message that every single instrument kind of brings in that music, because it is very it just feels like it's bigger than yourself. Those songs just actually mean a lot in different kinds of ways. And I think that's something we always try to have wanted to be and I think Coldplay is a similar kind of feel with the music they make, and even the Smiths in a lot of ways. And then lots of other bands, we also love the messages they're putting out, but also when it comes to the Smiths, I love how the instruments all come together and they almost sound like it's all orchestrated together, because they all have different melodies playing, but they come together in a beautiful way. And Echo and the Bunnymen, it's lots of cool different sounds and very atmospheric, but also rock and cool, and bands like The Cure, same kind of thing and stuff. So there's different things we pick up for different kinds of artists for sure, but I think the thing that influences us most is kind of the spirit that people bring to their art.
Yeah, that's very true. Very well said. So with some of these artists, Joy Division, Echo, do you feel like your fans are familiar with them, sort of coming into it? And is that kind of because my boss always says that he knows all the old music, and he's like, I find it so interesting that kids these days like these bands, yet they've never heard of the other ones that they could equally get into. Do you feel like people know them when they come listen to you?
I mean, you see lots of Joy Division shirts, so that's for sure. But you're not always sure if they know the music. I think some of them do, and I think, from interviews like this and the ones where we talk about it, like, people can learn. I mean, it's pretty easy. I mean, if you're listening to it, on the radio or online, you just Google it, and you Google some of these bands, you can find lots of different kinds of, little gold mines.
Awesome. And then, so if you could recommend one sort of album for your younger audience to listen to, one that kind of really spoke to you guys. It can be different for each of you, but a lot of the times I feel it's the same whenever I talk to a band. What would it be?
One I would choose is probably X and Y by Coldplay. I've listened to it probably too many times. But I've always loved everything they've done. But that's one that definitely has stood out to me a lot.
It's becoming an old one now, too, which is weird. Kids now, won't know that record, which is strange. That's a great one. I think for me, one of the best, just pop isn't popular kind of albums ever probably would be So by Peter Gabriel.
Knew you were gonna say that.
Yes. I mean, every single the musicality, the drums and the bass playing and the guitars and the strings and the horns and the electronic kind of parts, and obviously the meanings behind the songs and all. They're very beautiful stories, and they tell lots of different kinds of messages, whether they're fun or they're very kind of intense and dark in ways. And I think that record that's kind of the highest standard of a great just overall record that can be created, for at least for me.
And then I do have to sort of go back to X and Y for a quick minute. Have you heard Tina Grannis's Fix You cover?
No.
Oh my God.
She's so sweet though. And talented. I'm sure it's amazing.
Definitely, if you have a chance when you're driving to the next gig, definitely look it up.
I will look that up. Wow. I didn't even know.
It's so weird, but yeah, she can really take it and make it her own, which is kind of cool.
That's sweet.
So, this is let me see. What is the best piece of advice that you have received from sort of a more established band? Because I'm assuming as a younger band, you're trying to get everything that you can get, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, there's so many, great things that we've heard from, different artists or bands or whatever. But I remember we actually made friends with Seal, which is crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah, and actually we co-wrote one of the songs on his album that's coming out really soon. Actually, he just announced it. So promo for Seal, yay! Not like he needs it, but anyway, and we made friends with him, and we were talking, and this was right before our album came out, which is obviously our first one. And I remember talking to him and saying, I'm really nervous. I don't know. What if it doesn't work? What if people don't like it? I don't know what's going to happen, And he said, well, let me ask you something. Did you do your best? And I said, yeah, of course. I think so. And he's like, then that's all you need to know. All you need to know is that you did your best, and that, everything else will just kind of unfold, And that was, almost 2.5 years ago or something now, and I'll never forget him asking if I did my best, and that literally is all that mattered. And I think that's such a good point, because you can't control other people's opinions of you, but you can control, the efforts that you put into something, and I think that's something that is gonna be remembered forever.
Very true. And Seal, he just looks like a wise man. But yes, I saw him.
He is.
In concert once. He is incredible.
I haven't seen him live yet.
He is so good. If you get a chance, definitely check him out.
I will.
So it kind of leads to my next question. There had to be a point when either you guys or a band, or you personally with your voice kind of said, this is no longer a hobby. This could turn into, a career. And I'm just wondering if you guys remember what that point was.
Yeah, well, I think because we've been doing this for almost 9 years now, there had to be a time where it was it went from for fun to real life. And I think it was more like a gradual thing. It wasn't like there was one show that was okay, we're going to do this for real. It was just sort of a gradual change, and everything for this band has been sort of a slow burn, as people call it. Cool Kids, like we just talked about, took a long time to be known, which is really incredible because we got to watch the process. And that kind of is just how it was as a band in general. We've always had to wait for something. It's not like it's always been a clear answer immediately. which makes you appreciate it more. But I think really when we started to tour more, we got asked to do a few shows with Owl City, and that was our first like major like tour-ish, even though it wasn't that long. It was just a few shows, but it was enough for us to be like, wow, you know, even Owl City, who of course everyone knows Fireflies, and it was such a great thing to realize, like, oh, his crowd actually likes us, you know, and it was, you know, 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 people a night, or I think, and to see that it was working there was kind of I mean, that could probably be one of the stepping stones that was like, okay, let's really dive in. And then Warped Tour for the first time happened basically right after that. So then since then we've been going straight.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2015, almost at the end.
And doubled it too. I mean, this is 5,000. I'm sure this is one of the smaller venues on the tour too. So what a difference
amazing.
a year makes. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So to sort of make a pun on words, I kind of always like asking this question: what cool kid or cool person would either of you want to like have dinner with, or you know, spend time with, and what would you sort of want to know about them?
I think one person that I've always thought was so cool and so respectable, who I've actually had the pleasure of meeting and actually getting to talk for like an hour, is Emma Watson. Like, she is just so sweet, so normal, and like you wouldn't even, if you're like just in the middle of talking, you'd forget, like, oh my gosh, she's in Harry Potter, you know. And so she's one person that I would definitely want to like get together with again, and like just know like how she dealt with everything, you know, because who doesn't know who Emma Watson is, you know. And I'd love to hear her perspective on, you know, her fame, but even just her life, and what was her, you know, favorite memory with all of it, you know what I mean? Because it could be, oh, when I was filming this, or even just like an in-between thing, you know, and you never know with those kind of people. So I'd like to get to know her better for sure. Do you know who you'd pick?
I would pick, I mean, I don't know. It'd be fun to sit with the Queen, just to say I sat with the Queen.
Very true.
I mean, she's
That's a good answer.
longest reigning Queen of England ever, so that's pretty killer. Yeah, so I mean, why not?
That's a
Yeah,
good
I'll
answer.
sit with the Queen, talk to her,
I mean, why exactly? Why
talk
not?
over
Find out
tea.
what it's like to be queen.
Yes.
Really? I mean, it must be, yeah, that must be another thing. Like, I could not imagine walking into a room and having everyone stand, like, just kind of, you know, out of randomness. And then, so this will be one of my last questions. I feel like every time I listen to your voice, I hear something different. Who do you often get compared to? Like, oh, you sound just like so-and-so.
You know, I don't hear that as much anymore, which is, I think naturally when you're starting out as a band, you hear it a lot, and then as you start to have your own identity, people start to forget to compare you to other people, which is actually nice.
True.
But I have gotten, I mean, especially with Bright, because it's acoustic, people have said Taylor Swift, which of course is a compliment. She's a great singer, and she's great. So that's always a fun one to hear. And I mean, back, I don't know, probably when we were doing Warped Tour, which is, it makes sense. Like, people would sometimes say Hayley Williams from Paramore, which of course is a compliment too. And I think it also was setting wise, you know, they did Warped Tour and we were doing Warped Tour, and I was a girl in a band, so they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are exactly the same.
And young.
Yeah, exactly, young. So she was probably around the same age as me. So anyway, those are two people that I've gotten. Taylor Swift more recently, probably. And sometimes Ellie Goulding randomly, which I don't hear just because I think her voice is so unique and so awesome that, I mean, I can't even compare her voice to anybody, especially not my own. So those are a few people I've gotten.
Yeah, and I mean, now I can hear all those, and definitely every time I listen to Riot, I'm like, oh, they were 15 when they wrote that, and I just feel entirely inadequate. Like, every single time, without fail.
Yeah, well, everyone's listening to a 15-year-old version of me, so it's kind of weird because my voice has changed, you know, as I've gotten older, which is crazy.
True, and I mean, it has to be weird for you guys, too. I mean, like, playing those, like, how much growth happens between, you know, 15 and 17, or, you know, even 17 and 20. Like,
Yeah.
it must be interesting.
Yeah, lots of growth happens there. Those are like prime years, in my opinion, and I feel like a different person than I was a year ago, and, you know, so on. So it definitely is interesting that we're going through this at this time in our life, and I think it's really unique and special, and really gets to give you a different perspective on life itself as you're growing into being an adult.
Very true. Now you guys have a killer set that you have to put on, so I'm going to let you go.
No worries.
But I do have to ask, what artists have your ear right now?
I would say. I mean, I've always loved The National.
Oh my God, they are so good.
They are so good.
True.
And your answer?
I've been listening a lot to the new Foles album. Also, a guy named Leon Bridges. He's like old R&B kind of like blues amazingness.
That's
and
like getting to a time machine. He's good.
yeah, he's incredible. And Beck's new song is really killer too. Dreams.
Oh, okay.
It's really
That
cool.
is good.
I saw that online. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. And all right, now I promise this will be my last question. I feel like I'm the only one who asserts this. I feel like I'm gonna get this name wrong. Tyler. Tyler sounds just like Matt Berringer in some songs of The National. Do you see that too?
Tyler from
21 Pilots. See, because no one else hears it.
Now I'll have to listen and see. Like, now that I can picture it. But I'll let you know.
Okay.
I think I can get the kind of way he like fluctuates between certain words and notes. I can kind of see what you're saying. I think I can get what you're saying.
All right.
Obviously, his voice is a lot lower.
Yeah, very true.
But it's like I get what you're saying with that.
All right. Good. I am validated, and
Yeah,
thank you
you feel
guys
good.
so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.